Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to give it a minute to allow people to join and then we'll get started. Hi to everyone who has just joined. We're just giving it a minute to let everyone get in and then we'll get started. Cool. So it is 12. So I think we'll jump straight in and then people can join as we go. So thank you for joining us for our second webinar training for the Women and Girls Match Fund on crafting compelling content. I'm Bethany and I'm joined by my colleague Sahil, and also delighted to be joined once again by the IG Advisors team who will be introducing themselves shortly. But just before we get into today's webinar, we just want to go over a few housekeeping rules, which I'm sure you're all very well aware of by now. But you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom panel, the chat function. Please do use this to introduce yourselves. You want to set it to everyone so that everyone can see your message and you can share ideas and thoughts here throughout the session. There's also a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Please do use this to ask your questions. We'll be answering them throughout the session and at the end. Please do put them in here so we can ensure that we don't miss any and your question does get answered. As always, you'll be muted throughout this session. So again, please do direct your questions in the Q&A box or use the chat box to speak. This webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to review it after or share with colleagues as well as we'll have the slides available. And they're all available already, actually, I think, in the Trello board in your Big Give charity portal. So you'll be able to go there and access these slides and eventually the webinar recordings there as well. But I think no, I'm going ahead of myself. Just one more slide. So yeah, just next one. Thank you. I think you're all very well aware of kind of the main campaign rules at the moment. But as just a reminder, the campaign is launching on the 10th of October, so not too far away now. And we'll have one more webinar tomorrow with myself and Sahil. We'll be going over every question you can possibly think of for the Women and Girls Match Fund. So anything you have, any questions around like the process or how things work, please do join us for tomorrow's webinar and we can chat through them with you. But with that, I'll pass on to Caitlin and Charlie.
Hello, everyone. Hello again to those of you that joined us yesterday. Great to see you all today again, and any new faces, new organisations. It's great to be here with you all. Please do let us know who you are and what organisation you're from in the chat. And just a quick overview of who we are, who IG Advisors is, why we're here talking to you today. So IG Advisors is a strategy consultancy firm working with the philanthropy, business and non-profit sectors for social and environmental change, as you can see on the screen. And we work with a lot of women and girls and gender justice charities, focusing on fundraising strategy. So here today, myself, Charlie, hello, and Caitlin, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Caitlin. It's lovely to see you again. Really looking forward to today's session.
Amazing. So we are going to be your facilitators for today. And our emails are up on the screen. If there are any questions that come to you after the session today, in between now and the campaign, please do reach out. We also have our QR codes there that you can scan to get in touch via LinkedIn if you would like to. And yeah, we're here for any questions that you might have and support you might need. So just reach out afterwards if you would like to. And just to set the context of today, we had yesterday our fundraising strategy fundamentals session, and today we're talking all things compelling content. So we're going to spend we're introducing the session now, and we're going to spend the first half of today focusing on messaging. and the second half on channels and content, focusing specifically on social media and email communications as the most popular forms for this type of match funding campaign. So let's dive straight into our icebreaker. Amazing. So a question for you guys to kick us off and get this a little bit interactive to start with. So we would love to hear from you in the chat, quick fire. Which communication channels do you plan on using to reach your supporters during this campaign? Which communication channels are at the forefront of your mind for this campaign? Please do just drop them in the chat. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, not sure about X. Yeah, emails and socials, newsletters, love that. Instagram and LinkedIn. Email is new for you. Okay, interesting. Posters, love that. Some offline channels we've got in the chat here. Posters and postcards, talking to your board. Yes, leverage those connections, leverage those assets. Newsletter, amazing. So we've got a lot of social media, online channels, and some offline channels, which is great. Cool. So a quick overview to reflect those online and offline channels of the main channels you might be thinking about. So of course, social media is a really great tool for reaching a large audience of everyday givers and is used a lot in match funding campaigns. There's a lot of asks you can make via social media. So follow our Instagram, share our story, answer this poll, join us in X. There's a lot of calls to action and asks that you can make via social media. Your website, which is a really, really key channel where people will often turn to look for general information about you and your work in the first instance. So think about spotlighting your campaign on your website, adding a line about the campaign, maybe writing a blog post about it and publishing that on your website could be a really useful channel. Emails, we've had a lot in the chat already, which is great, and it's in the Big Gives experience. Email has been demonstrated to be a really useful and important tool for success in past match funds, so that is great. And of course, if someone is already signed up to your mailing list, to your email list, then they are already engaged with your organization in some way. So again, a really useful channel, and glad to see so many of you already highlighting that. But you might also want to think about some offline channels as well. So calls and in-person meetings can be really, really powerful and productive when you have some communications that you'd like to tailor. So maybe there's some higher level potential donors that you're interested in having a conversation with, and that can be really a useful channel for that. Events can, of course, be more resource intensive, but they can be a really, really good way to engage your community, to bring people together, and really use that as an opportunity to share more about your work. And the press as well, if you have any contacts in your networks that you might want to explore, that could also be a really great channel to think about if that applies to you. Amazing. So a quick overview, but we want to get into the detail of the messaging now, which I know can feel a little bit daunting to think about. You want to communicate the impact of your organization, all of the amazing things that you do to the best of your ability and put yourself in the best light. You want to communicate in a really sensitive way to your communities that you're working with and that you're serving. You want to communicate in the best way for your donors too. But although it's important to acknowledge that it is and can be daunting, it's also a really exciting opportunity for, firstly, your organization, but also for the sector. So why is it an amazing opportunity for your organization? An obvious one, to raise money, of course. That is our goal in this campaign. but also to, boost your profile, really demonstrate the value of your organization, and test what works. We spoke yesterday, if you were on the call, about this being an opportunity to test new approaches, and see what works for different audiences. And social media is a really great channel for kind of testing that, and it provides a lot of data that you can analyze around which posts are most successful, which posts resonate with specific audiences most. And that's a really good opportunity for learning and development for improving communications the next time you do a match fund campaign like this. And it's also just a great moment to stop and reflect, which we don't often have that much time for. And then for the sector, it's also a really fantastic opportunity for you as an organisation to raise greater awareness of the cause that you are working towards and the work that you do, because it's so important, and to influence and contribute to narratives online. So making sure that we are, rather than perpetuating potentially problematic stereotypes of women as victims, for example, we have an opportunity to challenge those narratives and really contribute to that framing and positioning in a positive way. And that comes hand in hand with the potential to amplify women and girls' voices, sharing their stories, sharing testimonials, maybe if it's appropriate to your organisation and the communities that you work with, giving them a platform on your socials channels if that's something that they would be comfortable with. I'm really just setting an example for the way that people speak about women and girls in this space. Cool. So we've thought about how fantastic this opportunity is. Now getting into the nitty-gritty, what do we need to think about for this campaign? So we need to think about our audience type. What are your key audiences for this campaign for your organisation? Is it household and everyday givers? Is it maybe more high net worth individuals with more wealth? Foundations? Maybe you really want to target some social media influencers to spread the word. Some of you said your board. Is it your trustees that you really want to engage more in fundraising and in this campaign? And thinking about the relationship between that audience and your organisation. So are they a current donor? Were they once a donor and haven't been engaged in your work for a while? And the purpose of really thinking about that relationship is to make sure that you are identifying upfront how much they already know about your work, what might they need to know going forward, where are the gaps in their knowledge about your organisation and your work. And then another really key thing to think about is their motivations, which goes hand in hand with then what you communicate and offer as a result and in response to those motivations. So oftentimes for donors, this is about impact. Donors like to see the impact of your work, your organisation, and therefore the impact that their donation could have. So again, for those of you that were on the call yesterday, I was like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. Make sure to really communicate the impact of contributing to a match fund campaign and the doubling of donations and therefore impact that this can have. It's super, super important. And then another thing to think about is, what are you asking for? What is your call to action? So are you asking them to make a donation? Are you asking them to share a post, spread the word, etc.? And really, really, really important, where are you going to reach them? What platforms are they using? So the two key things from this slide: who are we trying to target and where can we reach them? Where are we going to meet them? And a quick reminder as well to consider not just the campaign period, but also the post-campaign period. So how do we need to acknowledge donors and update them on the impact of their funding? How maybe you want to leverage them for future campaigns. So really important to think about your messaging post-campaign period also. Okay, I'm going to stop talking in a second and hand over to you all to we're gonna have a think. So the last slide was about tailoring your message. One of the key things that we can take from that is really, really important to tailor your message in this campaign. So would love for you all to think about one dream donor for your campaign. Could be a past donor that you want to re-engage, could be a current prospective donor that you really wanted to engage in your work for a really long time, and this is the perfect opportunity to do so. And we would love for you to put yourself in their shoes and think about what questions they might have for you and for your organisation in order to inform them making a gift in this match fund campaign. So a couple of minutes to drop as many questions as you can in the chat. Why do you need to fundraise? Exactly, really communicating the need up front is super important in any kind of fundraising ask. What exact area you need support with. Yeah, for some donors, it can be really important to understand exactly what difference they are going to make to your work. How will it impact my local community? Yeah, for sure. Really, really important, especially when you're a local, maybe place-based organisation. Any other questions that you think, if you were in the mind of your dream donor, what they might want to know about your organisation? How we can work together in future partnerships. Interesting. Love that. Thinking ahead. Exactly. Post-campaign. Some great ideas in the chat. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. What's the benefits to us? So it's about communicating the need, communicating how amazing your work is, what you're doing, and also the so what. So what is this donation going to help you to achieve? Where is it going? And what is the impact? What is going to be the impact that that donor can see? Why me? And how the specific issue might affect them. Exactly. So what I'm getting from all of these things is the reason it's important to think about these questions is because you really need to get in the mindset of your donor and make sure you're tailoring your message to answer these questions for them.
And I just want to jump in and say on the why me question, that is a really, really good one. And also why your organization specifically. So often when we work with charities, they're very, very good at explaining the problem that they're working on and the need. But a key thing that sometimes gets lost is your value add as an organization and your mission and your vision and your values and why they're so important within the wider ecosystem. So I love that.
Yes, and I can see people also pointing that out in the chat. So perfect. Okay. If we can just move to the next slide, that would be cool. I'm not going to speak to all of these questions, but you have the slides. So these are just some more questions that you might want to think about that might be good to prompt this kind of, approach to tailoring your messaging. And another thing that we would really, really recommend is using the moment and leveraging the now. So one question that your donors might think is, or your prospective donors for this campaign might think is, why now? Why should I donate now? And you have a really strong opportunity to leverage the campaign period to answer that question. So one reason why time-bound campaigns like the Women and Girls Match Fund work really well is the urgency piece. So if you're communicating a start and end date, that can be really, really effective. So make sure to highlight that, as well as the incentive. Again, the potential to double the impact of your donation, double the impact for our communities. And also something that can be a slight tension is acknowledging the moment, because some of the reality is that the moment isn't that great for a lot of people at the moment. Cost of living has been really difficult and continues to be, which is compounding, inequalities and in addition to that, the impacts of COVID continue. We're facing a lot of political instability across the world at the moment, but that can be a really important thing to kind of to point out, because it builds the case for why you as an organization require funding at this time. And on that, the need and impact, really leveraging and making sure that you draw out why do you need the money, the so what, as I mentioned before. So really making sure that you don't overlook the difference that the work and the gift will make to your organization, to the community. And there's an example on there. Great. Okay, so we just wanted to touch on, of course, linking to what I just mentioned about acknowledging the moment. We just wanted to touch on how important it can be, and how to acknowledge and call out the cost of living crisis, and the impact that it is having on women and girls and on women and girls organisations. So unfortunately, there is a lot of information and research out there that shows that the cost of living crisis is having a disproportionate impact on women and girls, especially those who are in groups already facing disadvantage in other ways, who are subject to intersectional inequalities. And it's really important to acknowledge that, as I said, the discrimination, structural inequality, the kind of current state of the world at the moment are all compounding issues that are impacting not just women and girls in society, but women and girls organisations working to support those groups and communities. There's not a lot of government spending. There's government cuts on essential services for women and girls, frontline services for violence and violence against women and girls in particular continue to face a lot of hardship at the moment. And so, as I'm sure you're all aware more than anyone else, the work that your organisations are doing are so important, and that does have consequences. There's increased demand for your services, which means there are rising costs for your organisation, and it creates can create staff burnout too. So on the right-hand side of this slide, there's some resources for some useful stats and sources of information that you could use to kind of highlight these things. And another kind of daunting, I guess, thing can be to make that ask in the context of this environment. And there's a few tips on here as to how you can go about this really sensitively and respectfully. So as we've just highlighted some resources, it can be really, authentic to communicate how the cost of living has impacted the communities and organisations' work. And you can do that through using personal stories, testimonials, as I said, and the resources that we highlighted as examples. But also just to kind of uplift us again, doesn't all have to be doom and gloom, even though I know that the environment can feel like that sometimes. The work, as I said, that everyone's on the calls, organisations are doing, and the collaboration with your communities that that is helping to overcome some of these challenges, the resilience that you're building together is something that you can really, really draw out and make sure that puts you in the best light and sets you up for success in communicating why your organisation is the best place for that donor to support right now. And another thing that is really good to consider, a good tip, is just to acknowledge that it's really difficult for some people to give right now, and that any size donation is better than no donation, is amazing, but also that there are other ways that people can contribute beyond donating, beyond a financial gift, and they can support you. They can be great advocates for you on social media, in events in your local community, for example, if that's a good kind of channel for you. And a lot of these tips are particularly relevant for making an ask in your local community. I know that there's some organisations on the call or participating in this Women and Girls Match Fund campaign who work really locally and are really embedded in the community. And so, you know, some of these tips are really going to be your friend in communicating with your communities during this campaign period.
Yeah, and just one small thing I'd add on this. I completely agree with everything you've just said, and that piece about all of the positive stuff that your organization is doing. One of the pieces of feedback we're hearing a lot at the moment is people are feeling overwhelmed and almost desensitized by the quantity of kind of negative doom and gloom information. And obviously, yes, communicate the problem, communicate the need, and explore with some potentially more hopeful messaging around the vision of what everyone can achieve together if they put their resource behind the wonderful work that you do.
For sure. And that can really build momentum and draw people towards a kind of community and partnership to achieve something. So yeah, love that. And really important to keep in mind. Okay, so one way to really think about how you want to, you know, use your messaging in this campaign and tailor your messaging is to spotlight and think about some other campaigns that you might have seen that you would like to take inspiration from. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take 1 minute to think about what fundraising campaign has inspired you and why. That could be from within the Women and Girls space or match fund campaign in the past, or it could be in other sectors or cause areas. So I'd love for you to pop any that spring to mind in the chat that you have seen and thought, yes, we need to do more of that, or this is great because. Okay. We're going to spotlight one for you, I think, very quickly. So Mamash is an organisation that supports women and girls, trans and intersex people in the fight for their rights. It's a grant-making organisation, and they share copy and assets for supporters to use to help with fundraising. So you can see a few elements of this that are really powerful are the kind of urgency that it inspires in the target and the time frame given. It's a really simple graphic. It's very concise, which is great for social media, and it kind of inspires that framing around join us in supporting feminist activism, building that momentum, and it's a chance to become a feminist activist and contribute to that cause, which is more of an inspiring message. Okay, moving on to messaging for women and girls in particular, a few key tips to think about. Really, really important. How do the people that you serve and that you work with want to be spoken about? If you're not sure about this, then ask, can you give your followers, communities a chance to vote on the language that you use in your campaign, for example, through social media? Get inspired, as we just demonstrated a spotlight. Have a look at other campaigns that you really like and think about why. Also think about in that what you don't want. So, you know, what messaging do you want to avoid? We spoke about avoiding perpetuating problematic stereotypes and making sure that your messaging is really inclusive. Maybe think about what you've seen that really bothers you and that you really don't want to replicate in your campaign. And you can come back to your values, really knowing your values and making sure that those are reflected in the way that you message your work is really, really important. And again, we spoke about this before, but thinking about ways that you can elevate, empower women and girls' voices in the space. Very quickly, want to touch on artificial intelligence because of the importance of technology and fundraising at the moment. AI is definitely here to stay, and it can be a really, really useful tool. So in this context, especially for conducting research, for supporting with content creation, written content, or to generate images for fundraising purposes, tools such as ChatGPT or Copilot can be really, really useful. But a couple of key tips for using these kind of softwares is try experimenting with different prompts. It's really useful to be quite specific in the things that you ask these tools to generate for you. That's a really good tip. And just a reminder to be aware of the information that ChatGPT or Copilot or any other AI softwares are sharing with you, what those sources are. Really verifying the credibility of that is super important, and also being aware of the data that you are inputting into AI software is incredibly important, because you need to be aware of data privacy above all else. Just also want to take a very quick moment to acknowledge the kind of there are biases in AI. Often it is seen as a kind of impartial tool, but actually there are people behind these tools that have inputted the data. They've, built these tools and the way that they work. And it's just really important to think about the kind of narratives and sensitivities around what we're putting out there about women and girls when we use this software. So just make sure to use it to enhance your productivity, especially if you have limited resources, but make sure to use it safely and adhere to any policies that your organization may have around AI. Cool. I'm going to hand it over to you, Caitlin.
Okay, fantastic. So we've spoken a lot about messaging, but where are you sharing this messaging? Where are you putting it out into the world? So we're going to talk a little bit about social media now, because I know a lot of you mentioned you're going to be using that in the chat. So social media, a key communications channel for crowdfunding, because it is a mass market platform. You can reach loads of people, whole load of platforms that you can choose from, and we're going to dive into some of them in a second. Like with everything, be strategic. You need to create a strategy to make sure that your use of social media is effective, focused, and productive. You can't be using every single platform. I'm assuming that there's only one or two of you working on this campaign, so have a strategy, be really focused. Top tips for pulling your strategy together. First of all, if you joined us yesterday, go back to your guiding stars. What are you trying to achieve through this campaign? And therefore, what role is social media playing within those wider ambitions? As with yesterday, set yourself goals, make them really specific, really measurable, really tangible, and that'll help you stay on track and keep yourself accountable. Identify any resources that already exist. Have you already been posting on social media and there are things that you could repurpose? Do you have a language on your website? Do you already have testimonials, case studies, videos that you can pull clips from? You do not need to create everything from scratch. We do not recommend that you create everything from scratch. I believe the Big Give has loads of templates, so make sure you're drawing on what already exists. And also, I know a lot of you had longer term goals related to this. So think about if you create new materials, will you be able to repurpose them in future or for future campaigns? Next top tip, know your audience. Who are you trying to reach through social media? What platforms are they using? And where do people currently engage with you? Because they're normally your lowest hanging fruit. If people are already very active, championing your work, then they're probably key people to be engaging through your campaign. Once you've understood your audience, and do the donor persona exercise we shared yesterday to work out exactly what makes them tick, then you choose your platforms. And in our experience, it's much better to choose one or two and do them really, really well than spread yourself too thin and be spending time on platforms that maybe none of your followers or users are even engaging with. And then plan and create your content in advance. The great thing about social media is you can create your posts, you can schedule them ahead of time, and make your life easier when it comes to campaign week. So we're going to get interactive now. If you thought you could get away with being quiet, now it's time for you to do some work. Think about social media and let us know in the chat, what are the top 2 aims that you have for your social media strategy? Except for raising money. I'm assuming everyone's trying to raise money. So are you trying to educate around a certain topic? Are you trying to reach new audiences, current audiences? Are you trying to is this a learning opportunity and you want to explore new tools, new skills, new messaging? 30 seconds. Your top 2 to 3 goals. Clear message. I love that, Rachel. I think that's such a good goal to have, being really focused about who you're targeting and the messaging that you're putting out there. And you can still experiment. You can still try a kind of, tweak your posts, look at the analytics, see what seems to be resonating. But I love being very focused and clear. Awareness raising, 100%. And I think especially with cause areas related to women and girls, gender justice, feminism, there is so much impact we can have in just educating and awareness raising right now, given the current state of play. Current audiences, in that case, Sadie, I'd think about where all your audience is currently engaging you and prioritize those channels. Posts get lost in feed. That's a really great point, April. So sometimes people feel scared to post on social media, but a lot of these platforms, like, if you're using Twitter/X, if you're using LinkedIn, a lot of these platforms are either really fast moving or people will only see your posts like a few days later. So actually it's better to post more rather than less. Okay, fab. This is great. So make sure that all of your social media strategy is designed around those goals that you've just shared. And I love that, Shrina, thinking about how do you want people to feel when they engage with your content? That's a really useful reflection prompt. So we've shared a load of different tools that you can explore here. Not going to talk you through them all, but the key things to know, there are lots of tools for accessing free images like Unsplash, for designing content like Canva, for shortening hyperlinks and tracking clicks like Bitly, for scheduling posts. Also, a lot of social media platforms have their own inbuilt data analysis. So make sure you're looking at that and tracking that over time. And think about the time zones. Often morning times when people start work can be quite good on a lot of platforms. Okay. We're going to be asking people to donate, but there are so many other calls to action. So I just want to do a quick fire brainstorm in the chat. What else might you be asking of your followers and supporters on social media this campaign? I want everyone to type one thing right now, and then I'm going to count down from 10, and we're all going to post at the same time. So a few seconds to pull together a call to action other than donate now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me know. Yes. Sharing is a great one. Make sure that you're asking your supporters to share because, as Charlie mentioned, they might not all be able to donate. Join our mailing list, 100%. Spread the word, refer. Fabulous. Follow us for updates on how we're using the money. Lots of really great ways you can leverage your supporters. Okay. Another way you can leverage your supporters beyond just donating, resharing your content, reading more and learning more about an issue is to get them to help fundraise for you. So Girls Who Code, they work on closing the gender gap in tech, and they have a whole toolkit for their supporters to help them go out and fundraise on their behalf. So they include email templates, fundraising top tips, social media templates, certificates of acknowledgement of thank you for supporting us with our campaign. So we've linked them there. Do check it out and think about how you can equip your followers to help you. Okay, and there's all the proactive stuff. So you want to create your posts in advance, but you also need to react during the campaign period itself. So make sure you're using the hashtag and you're tagging Big Give, because that's going to amplify the reach and visibility of your posts. Share updates on how much money you've unlocked. The one caveat being only share updates once you've started unlocking money. Otherwise, people will begin to worry about the credibility of your organization. So when you have an update, share it. Engage with your supporters. If they reshare your posts, like it, comment, say thank you, be really reactive and get creative. So there are lots of organizations that do fun social media challenges to spread the word, to encourage people to donate. So I think it was Rachel who in yesterday's session said, I just really want to enjoy this campaign, and a fun little challenge might be a good way of doing that. And speaking of fun, another exercise for you all, which is to create your campaign hashtag. So your campaign hashtag is, as we said, going to help you raise visibility around your work, your posts. It's going to make it easy for people to find what you're doing. Some best practice, keep it short and snappy. Capitalize the start of each word so that it's easy to read, and make sure it's all one word. So in green, we've got some good examples. Again, I'm going to give you just a few seconds to get creative. And then share in the chat when you've thought of your campaign hashtag. One minute on this. Oh, we've got a number of different ideas in the chat from Rachel. Maybe it's worth sharing them with colleagues or people in your community and getting some feedback about what they like. Hashtag my sister's fund, hashtag support Surrey women. Oh, I love the alliteration in that. And I also love the community solidarity piece. If you're focusing on fundraising from the local Surrey community, then that's probably a really effective hashtag. Oh, dance her dream. I want to take part in that. I love it. Okay, fabulous. The time I'm going to move on, but I feel like we've all got a feeling for what this exercise is about. So do feel free to take it away, do more thinking, talk to your team, talk to your communities, see what resonates with them. Okay, so different channels that you might be thinking about. X, formerly Twitter. There are a lot of users on there, often kind of millennial users. The key thing to mention about this is since Musk took over, there have been a number of people who have left that platform. It's a platform where often more kind of controversial, extremist content is favored by the algorithm. So if you still have a strong audience on that platform that is engaging, and I think the key word here is engaging, it might be that you have a lot of followers, but they're inactive. If you have a lot of followers who are active, then continue using this platform. Facebook, again, a very popular platform among millennials, will likely for a lot of you be a good platform for your campaign. It's often used a lot for community fundraising. So if you're trying to get members of your community to fundraise on your behalf, then this might be an interesting platform to support them with. Instagram is very, very up and coming and popular among Gen Z and millennials. If you have a following there, then go for it. Obviously, that's going to be a lot more visual content. And across all of these platforms, make sure that you have the link to your campaign in your bios. So post about it, but also have it in your bios. So it's literally the first thing that people see during campaign week. And then LinkedIn, as we know, very popular among professionals. I think a key thing with across all of these platforms, but especially true of LinkedIn, is there you can post from your organizational page, but on a lot of these platforms, posting from your personal page is actually really, really powerful. So for example, Team IG on LinkedIn, we find that posts from us as staff members perform a lot better than posts from our organizational LinkedIn page. So when you're planning your content, think both about your organization, but also your team and yourself. And where do you feel comfortable doing personal posts about the match fund? We've included an example of a really good use of Instagram. You can take a look, scan the QR code in your own time. Threads is something that a couple of you mentioned. So when Musk took over Twitter and it became X, a lot of people left Twitter and moved over to Threads. What we would say is it's used a lot for discussion and dialogue and community conversation. It's still early days in terms of how it's going to be used for fundraising. So again, the question for you is, do you already have a strong engaged community on Threads? If so, maybe it's a good platform for you. If not, it might not be worth investing in the platform just because we don't know about the long-term sustainability and popularity of it. And then TikTok, really up and coming, very popular among Gen Z. If you're planning to target younger audiences and kind of put out video challenges and campaigns, then this is a really, really exciting platform for you to explore. And it's definitely up and coming. So for those of you who are looking to learn about new platforms, this might be an interesting one to experiment with. Okay, and then just to recap, key takeaways. Focus on a few platforms and focus on doing them well. Go where your key audiences are. Think about quality of engagement. So it's not just about how many likes you get, but how many people are commenting, resharing your posts, clicking on your links. Make sure you're tracking things in a really holistic way. Authenticity resonates really well. That's why, for example, on LinkedIn, we find our personal posts perform better. So speak about personal experiences where this is appropriate, share testimonials, share stories, share videos. Think about your online community in the longer term as well. So beyond this campaign period, how are you looking after them? How are you maintaining them active? So when this campaign comes around next year, they're already super engaged and excited about your campaign. Think about online safety and experiment. Have fun with it. Explore visuals, videos. Video content is becoming really, really big. So this could be a good opportunity to get ahead of that wave and trend. Okay, and if you do have any issues with trolls, online safety, then do check out this resource. Okay, final 2 minutes before Q&A. Over to you, Charlie.
I'm going to zoom through this because we want to give you all an opportunity to ask questions. So very, very, very quickly, 15 seconds. Would love for you all to put one thing in the chat. What do you think makes a great email? And I know that a lot of you are using email as a channel, so short and direct. Yes, love that. Call to action in every message is super important. Being approachable, yes, really drawing on that relationship building element that we were speaking about in your fundraising campaign approach yesterday. Emotive, yeah. Images, interesting, yeah, images, and we see this on social media as well, can be really appealing and lead to some more clicks and reactions to your post. So, and the subject of the email. Yes, amazing. Okay, I'm going to speed through what we already had on our slide, which you've all already said, which is that the subject line is super important. It's going to drive people to even open your email in the first place. Also really important to know your objective. So that will help you to keep it short and snappy, which someone also said in the chat. Keep it to the point. So what do you want out of this email? What are you trying to communicate via this email? And especially important for new supporters is providing enough context. So for those that don't know your organization so well, definitely make sure that you are bearing that in mind. And something that we find super effective is visual formatting, which can be bolding things, using bullet points, making things really kind of visually accessible and drawing people to the important points of your message. Call to action, lots of people said that in the chat. Definitely make sure that that's in there. And again, testing what works. And there are tools, tools are your friend. Tools like MailChimp can be really, really helpful. Not going to talk you through this for the sake of time, but you can have a look at this example and see that all of those things we just spoke about, the subject line, the short and snappy, all characteristics of this really effective email. Okay. I'm going to hand over to the Big Give team.
Thank you, Charlie and Caitlin. Again, a really engaging webinar and lots of insightful information to kind of take forward. I did see a message just about the slides, so I just want to share a reminder to everyone that this webinar is being recorded. And if you go to the Big Give support section in your charity portal, under Women and Girls Match Fund and in the marketing assets resource, you should see a link to our Trello board where you'll see all of the kind of social media templates that we have available for this campaign, but also there's the slides where you can download and save all of this information so you can check back again on all of this information that I actually have shared. But with that, we did have a couple of other questions in relation to some of the info you shared. So one from Rachel, what kind of prompts can we use for AI?
Do you want to start, Caitlin? I can jump in.
Yeah, sure. I would say play around with it. I've seen some people do really creative stuff, like imagine I'm X type of person, tell me, draft an email that's going to resonate. Like you can get really, really creative with it. So my main recommendation would just be experiment. And you might have to rephrase your question a couple of times to get to the information that you need.
Yeah, I would also, I think iterating what you've said based on the response that it gives you is really effective. You might have to try it a few times, but also being quite specific, as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to be vague because you want to make sure that it understands exactly what you need from the prompt. That makes sense. So yeah, be clear and concise, but also one thing when I first started using AI that I wasn't doing was giving a little bit of context if it's needed. So if you give a little bit of context, but also keep it really clear, not vague, would be my tips.
Thanks, Faith. And we also had a question here from Sadie. Given that it's International Day of the Girl during the campaign, how would you use this to support the campaign?
Yeah, 100%. Excellent question, Sadie. Make sure that you are using that during your campaign. If there are any tags, hashtags, challenges that are going on alongside International Day of the Girl, make sure that you're jumping on those, basically piggybacking off it. And yes, your instincts are spot on. Use that moment to your advantage.
And it's also a great opportunity if you do work with girls, being able to use some of the impact stats that we've worked with X number of girls throughout this year, and we're planning to do X to continue to support them. And even if you are working more with women, you might highlight mothers and think about like daughters and supporting women for the future and things like that. So just seeing what you can tie in terms of comms messaging around girls on that day is also really important. Just saw another question came in from Sadie. Can you give AI examples of your current post that it emulates your tone of voice?
Yeah, AI is very clever. You can definitely do that. The main thing to be aware of is often these tools will keep your data. So if there is anything sensitive or you would not want other people to have in their hands, then don't input that into AI. But otherwise, it's super powerful. So yes, you can explore that.
Thanks. And this is one, maybe Sahil, you might be able to answer this. Please, can I ask a general question? Are corporate donations to the campaign also match funded?
Yeah, anyone can donate. Only charities can't donate to their own campaign, but anyone else, organizations, individuals, trusts and foundations, businesses can donate. Just need to make sure they donate via the website during the campaign weekend. The donation can be match funded.
Great, thank you, Sahil. And that's probably a good segue just to say a reminder that we are having our Ask Us Anything webinar tomorrow. So if you do have more general questions in relation to the campaign or no questions silly, so please do join us for that and ask us all of the questions that you want. But it looks like most of the questions for this webinar have been answered. So we might be able to finish a little bit early. So I'd like to say thank you again to Charlie and Caitlin. Really, really interesting webinar and really appreciate all of the work that you put into this. And also thank you to all of the charities that have attended. Really great to see you all here. I just did see actually Rachel put a quick question in the Q&A box. Could we create like a landing page for that week on our website?
Yeah, absolutely. We recommend it. So it avoids any donors sort of missing the opportunity. Create a landing page on your website, make sure it's highlighted on your homepage. And you can sort of augment it with like your own extra imagery that's not on your Big Give campaign page. And it's a great way to sort of capture any donations that may have been missed.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sahil. Well, with that, thanks everyone. Hope you have a lovely rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
so much,
you.
everyone. So lovely meeting you all. Good
Thanks,
luck.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.